Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I will be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing The Boogeyman, not the 1990 Disney movie. Although we have talked about doing that several times here on the show. No, this is the 2023 in theater Stephen King adaptation, John, of a short story that, get this, I've actually read.
Yeah, I don't believe it, but
I once read like 3/4 of Night Shift. I'm pretty proud of it.
If it's in Night Shift, I've definitely read it.
I believe it is.
That was one of my faves growing up. I had the paperback,
Joining me tonight, first up from the fiery hellscape that is New York City, please welcome Mr. John Schnars to the show.
There's not fire here. It's like,
I understand, but it's orange there, John. I
don't know. It is weird. It's it's been kind of waxing and waning, but it's not great.
We're gonna get into that later. Next up from Philadelphia, real rivalry going on here tonight. Please welcome Joe to the show. I don't know, is there a Philly New York rivalry? I feel like Philly just hates everyone.
Philly does hate everybody, but also Philly hates itself until other people then pick on said Philadelphians.
But Joe,
so accurate.
Joe, isn't that just the origin of all hate?
It is a cycle. Yeah.
Wow. Whoa. We went right to the philosophy here.
Get too heavy on here.
Eric, I think you forget sometimes. I'm from Philadelphia. I mean, I grew up in the Philadelphia suburbs.
That's right.
So
that's right.
If pressed, my loyalties are more to Philadelphia than to. I mean, at this point, my loyalties are to New York as the place I live. But I've never rooted for a New York sports team.
As a person who has zero hometown pride, I just will adopt. I'm Boston is where. I don't tell people I'm from there, but
yeah.
I wouldn't dissuade someone from believing that if they did. Who wants to be from upstate New York, John? You tell me.
Burnt Hills? Are you familiar with them hills?
Oh, it's the worst. The Boogeyman. We went to a movie theater.
Yeah.
Got some cool trailers. What's that movie? The Blackening? That looks pretty wild.
Yeah, I can't wait for The Blackening. I didn't get that trailer. I didn't see that trailer. I got in late, so I only saw maybe 2 or 3 things. I think I texted at least Casey and Eric. I got the new Yorgos trailer. Have you guys seen it?
What's it called?
It was more like a teaser. It was 40 seconds long. It's called Weird Stuff or something. I don't know. Do you know what it's called? Poor Thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
It looks fucking ridiculous. It's basically, do you remember that God, what was that movie called? Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow or something like that. It's basically that, but with Yorgos thematic things going on in it. So
now remind me, Yorgos did what?
The Lobster, Killing of a Sacred Deer, Dogtooth. We've watched most of his movies.
Killing of a Sacred Deer is one of the maybe the most angry I've ever been on this show. I really hated that movie.
That movie's fucking weird.
Really hated
that. I pitched to Laura to try to dress up as Colin Farrell at the end of that movie for Halloween. I'm just gonna stand outside with a beanie pulled over my face and a little rifle. She's not really having it.
No, she didn't dig that.
Speaking of things I might hate, Beau is Afraid hitting video in a couple weeks, so we may be.
You're very excited about it.
Soon. I gotta know. I have to know. I was rewatching Hereditary the other night because it's Ari Aster, right? Is Beau is Afraid?
Yeah,
yeah. So I've seen Midsommar 100 times. I love that movie. I was afraid to rewatch Hereditary because it's so uncomfortable to sit through. And scene 1, I'm like, this is the bleakest film that I've ever seen, probably. And it's, what I kind of forgot? It's actually really scary.
Yeah, it's very scary.
So it's this awful combination of actually really scary and just emotionally flattening on every level. And it's God damn, dude.
Yeah.
So I just have to know what Beau was Afraid.
Those two are straight bangers. I'm actually very excited to watch Beau is Afraid, but the way we're watching it is the way I probably would prefer to watch it, because like there's a solid chance I'm going to break it up in 2 sittings, at least.
It's what, like at least 3 hours long?
I think. Yeah, I think it's like a little over 3 hours. I mean, it's no Killing or what is it? What's the new Scorsese
Killing
movie?
of the Flower Moon?
Yeah, the Killers
That
of the
looks
Flower Moon.
good. And Scorsese's
except
the
it's-
one person that I'll sit through and like I don't care.
No, there's like.
I
Well,
took
look,
I
I'm
took
gonna
5
watch it, but
sittings
I
to get through The
will.
Irishman.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I'll watch it, but I'm gonna pretend it's like a TV show where I'm watching an hour of it every day.
The Irishman is legit like watching 3 different movies in one.
It's come on. Like, I like a lot of the Scorsese movies. I'm not
John,
gonna.
Scorsese and Leo together in the same movie?
No, I know.
Sign me
I
up.
know. Yeah.
Well, we don't have anybody that talented to talk about tonight, John. So let's take a quick break and discuss the Boogeyman.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time. Main feature.
Sometimes they're just too long. I had something to say, and
Sorry.
this is like the first time in a long time we're coming in completely cold. We did not pregame the show at any level.
Yeah, we've kind of that's been falling off lately, which honestly I'm fine with. I don't think we can just do it live, John, so to speak.
Look, we did it live for many, many years, and then we were like, we really gotta try to.
Well, we got in a couple fights. The thing is, like, that was when it was like I'm just fully a character now, so you can say whatever you want. We're gonna be fine.
It's true.
And if I think somebody's gonna be a bummer on the show, I just don't invite them on.
But like, I came in being like, I don't know, maybe Eric or Joe is gonna like this movie, and we'll see. So,
well, let's find out.
Respond yet?
Before we find that out, John, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word is Eidolon. I think it's Eidolon. Eidolon. Eidolon, let's say. It's a noun. It can mean an idealized person or thing, or a specter or phantom. Eidolon. It comes to us from the Greek eidos. I think it's eidos. Again, my Greek, terrible. Eidos, E-I-D-O-S, means form. Eidos gives us eidolon.
Interesting.
It's like if you want to sound smart to people, instead of using the word ghost, you could say eidolon, and they'll be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Smart
and
or like
"Don't
really
worry about it."
pretentious?
Yeah.
Like
it does
ghost
say
pretentious.
under the definition, it says literary, which is basically their way of saying pretentious. So,
Love it. All right, Joe. What'd you think of the Boogeyman? Oh, wait. Before we do that, John.
I was going to say, do we want to do any break?
Sorry.
We can go straight to it. No,
Tell me
look,
what this movie's about.
Honestly, all right. So I'll give you the background here. So this, I don't know if you all, I hope you looked this up at some level. Rob Savage, director. I was excited to see Rob Savage was the director of a little film called Host. You guys remember Host? I say little because it was like 45 minutes long. That movie, for the rest of my life, is going to have a very special place in my heart because it was really one of the first things that was produced during the pandemic that like sort of came out. And I'm curious to go back and rewatch it because it honestly captured something that we were all living through in this like kind of specific way and was really good. Like in at least the way I remember it being quite good. It's a 45-minute movie, so like do with that what you will. But so Rob Savage, he had apparently directed one other full length, or at least there's a movie in between Host and Boogeyman called Dash Cam. which I haven't seen. Yeah, have you seen it?
No, I have not.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it yet. Maybe that's one to go back and pick up. But yeah, I mean, Eric mentioned Boogeyman. This comes to us, written by Scott Beck, Brian Woods, but it is based on I believe, 1973 King short story.
That is wild.
Night Shift is definitely, I think
Early.
it's the first collection. It's not counting the Bachman books potentially, but And yeah, so it's an old story. I have to believe that if it's that old, it's kind of like passed through 18 different levels of optioning and development. But here we are. This is a 20th century movie. It also says Hulu. 20th century was like the Fox studio. Presumably, this is going to go to Hulu when it's done in the theater. But yeah, it's not from the handful of folks who have been producing all of the horror movies recently. So, interesting. It tells the story of a young family, or a family of three, not necessarily that young. And sorry, I'm pulling up names now. Sadie, Sawyer, and then their dad's name is Will. They've lost their mom to a car accident, and they're just in the process of recovering. The dad is he's a therapist. He's some kind of therapist. He is struggling with his own grief. The daughters are also sort of dealing in their own ways. We sort of meet them a month later as they're returning to school. And God, I can't even remember. The first spooky thing that happens, I guess, is Lester. There's a guy named Lester something that comes to see the dad sort of out of the blue. And he says, I'm here because I need you to believe me that I didn't kill my family or my daughters, but something else did. And then he is promptly murdered in their home. The dad practices in his home. And this sort of precipitates a lot of spooky things happening now to this family, to this, and they go into a bit of like, it's a very kind of straight up haunting / possession film where it's like, now we need to understand the backstory of these people, where this ghost might have come from. Also, while we wrestle with our own interpersonal demons. So yeah, let's stop there, I guess, and then we can kind of pick it up as we go.
Word. What do you think, Joe?
I didn't know anything about this coming in, but I'm usually really positive when it comes to, I can find a silver lining to pretty much any movie. I was not a big fan of this one. There's moments that I did like as the movie starts to traverse from the haunting supernatural to like almost like a creature feature. I thought it kind of shined in those small moments. It was juggling science and the non-science, and its inability to really discern between the two was a little frustrating because the rules of the monster made no goddamn sense. I've seen better. Darkness Falls, and it kind of gave me that same sort of like early 2000s. Okay, God. This is just one of the movies they're churning out right now. Yeah, I was like, oh, we're doing this. I did like the reference to Host that it had in it though, and so I guess it's trying to link all of the.
What's that reference?
I missed that. I forget who's watching a video about seances, and it's the same woman from Host.
Interesting.
That's running the seance. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That Host. I was thinking the Korean one.
No,
we were just talking about how he directed the Host.
I was not listening.
Not the good one. The other one.
Gotcha.
I like the other one. I like the Host. Yeah.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I strongly agree with Joe. I was very happy to go to a theater. It was like a moment in my week where I just needed a break. And so I was like, cool, I'm going to go. I went by myself. I sat down front. I just sort of let it wash over me. Honest to God, within 45 minutes, maybe on the walk home from the movie theater, couldn't remember 4 things about this movie. Like, it is so indistinguishable from 100 movies I've seen. Like, I mean, Joe, you sort of mentioned sort of early 2000s. I was thinking about, Eric, what was the name of the movie that we watched where we spent a lot of time joking about how the movie poster had like a woman's
Odette Eustman's
posterior.
butt on it. I remember her
Yes.
name. I don't remember the name of the movie.
It was called like The Unknown or something
The
like that.
Unborn?
Maybe Unborn. That could be
Unborn,
it.
just Unborn, yeah.
Oh my God. It was that movie. It was like, well, it is very much like a watered down Smile. Now they were in development. Like there's almost no way, like maybe people like knew that the scripts were floating around and like that there's a lot of similarities to sort of the mechanics of the Ghost, or at least enough that it's like, guys, like, didn't you think this was like a little too close? This one tries to like Smile goes the route of like, we're not going to tell you anything, or like we're going to tell you very little, and like we're just going to show you some like gruesome shit. This is PG-13, so you don't really have the gruesome shit. They then also like do the over-explaining thing. I mean, Joe, you were talking about how they can't decide which direction they want to go with how they're explaining. It's like there's a lot of narrative or exposition, but then none of it actually matters or like adds up in any serious way. The rules make no sense, which you mentioned. You don't even really get the full creature feature payout because like I mean, even at the end, they don't give you a full kind of view of this thing, which fine, like that's a decision they can make. But if you're gonna hang your hat on the fact that your movie has a cool monster, like you kind of do need to show the monster at some point.
It's like they're showing it, but then getting so insane with the camera work that you're like, well, I can't make out what I'm looking at.
Yes.
Mhm.
This was I spent a lot of time while I was watching this being like, I've seen a lot of parts of this movie before. The other movie is Lights Out, which like I didn't even like
Lights
that
Out.
much
Yeah, that was the other thing that came to mind.
but like the mechanic here is like the demon can't go in the dark, sort of, or like maybe it can, like, or like like the light scares it, but then like it can also like come out during the day,
Yeah.
even though it's like slightly shady in the
I'm
room that it's in. Like I don't know, it's
I'm
very
like
weird.
fully on board with you guys. I have read that story. Did you know that, John?
I
But
actually am curious, like, wait, like,
it's the story is terrifying.
well,
Like
and I
it
assume
is.
the story like 10 pages long. Like I assume it's like a pretty
It's not that long,
thin.
and it's not that it's like one kind of series of events. It's not a movie's worth of story.
Yeah.
And like, in fact, multiple of the short stories in that book are like some of the scariest things I've ever read. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty wild. And I have a lot of affection and like kind of nostalgia for that story, even though I was like kind of older when I read it. I know a lot of people love it. The problem is that the power in King's writing is this very unique, especially this early stuff. It's the very unique and extremely powerful way that he describes people's like inner emotional worlds and dialogue. And the problem is that that shit just does not translate to screen. And so your film's success largely is going to be rely, if it's a King adaptation, on like how original or interesting is the actual base corporeal idea of what the story is. And the unfortunate thing here is that the base of what this story is just sounds like, to your point, John, every goddamn supernatural movie we've watched for now 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
This movie is very forgettable, and I mean that in the sense that like I barely remember anything that happened in it, and I saw it 4 days ago. It's got a likable cast. Like I do really like the dude who shows up in the beginning that kind of gets them infected with the boogeyman thing. That guy, he's got a crazy name. I don't know if anybody can look
I
I
him
always
mean,
up.
call
hold
him David Dalmatian because I can't
Dalmatian, yeah,
pronounce.
something.
on.
But that
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that guy. He's a really big horror fan. He writes for Fangoria. He's done stuff with Shudder. So like I just like him a lot, and it's cool to see people who are very into horror get to do stuff like this. And I think he brings like a creepy thing. And what I've heard, and I kind of thought this at the time, it's sort of like you could argue that he's sort of like the character from the short story, sort of passing on. This is kind of a continuation of the story and like a fleshing out of what happens in the story in the first one. because that's basically what the first one is about a person whose family gets the baby, and then the wife, and like it's a whole thing. So that the stuff in the beginning is kind of fun, and I like the cast a lot. The dad is pretty likable, but again, just the setup, like
He's
you got a
like
dad, the
he's
mom
like
is
TV
dead,
movie
there's
likable.
kids, like yeah, I mean that's fair. I'm not saying listen, he's not Leo DiCaprio, John, but like the just everything about the setup is literally as safe and Hollywood as you could possibly go. And I don't even necessarily blame them for the way they did this because there's nothing in the King's story that is that crazy and out there. Like it's a very basic horror story that is so good and remembered because of the prose and the inner monologue and the emotional, the way he describes that stuff. There's just not much here. Somebody in the Instagram questions was like, "Oh, like how about that monster design?" I kind of was just like, I couldn't tell you what it looked like. It looked like if you crossed Slender Man with like Alien 3, like the alien dog, because he's on all fours a lot for some reason.
Yeah.
But it's just very generic creepypasta, like Shadow Man with a weird face.
Have you guys or do you guys watch I Think You Should Leave? Are you familiar with I Think You Should Leave?
Yeah.
Okay, so the new season just came out, which it's taken him like 2 years to make. He makes like 50 minutes of TV, and it takes him 2 years. There is I think it's the second episode of this new like set of episodes. There is like there's a thing where there's like a little creature, and that's all I can think about now when I think about this thing walking around on all fours. It's whatever. It's like a reference. That will not mean anything. Joe, you're gonna see it now, and you're gonna go, nice. So,
here's a positive thing I'll say. A couple of those early jump scares did get me. Like, I think there's some effective jump scares.
So this movie has it, and it's a return, frankly, because we haven't seen something that hits the jump scares this hard in a little while. The one jump scare got me so fucking bad.
There was a couple, yeah.
I was just like,
do you remember which one?
It was the one where, and this is the other thing, and I mean, we talked a little bit about how the rules don't make a ton of sense. There's a lot of like, is this happening in real life or is it happening in their head? Like, which
right.
I kind of hate.
Like Smile.
Yes, which is why I did not like Smile as well. It was the one with the door. She like all I remember is like she like goes over to the door to open the door, and then the door like I think it falls down, and stuff like goes into her mouth or something.
There is a weird.
It's a dream sequence.
Right. It is. I think it is a dream sequence. Yeah.
Yeah. So she goes to open her door, and literally whatever just gets the boogeyman vomiting into her mouth.
But the door also like falls on her, and like the way the camera does, like it like does the camera turn thing, and it was just like they played a loud noise. It was like super quiet, and then they're like, and it's like, oh fuck.
But like that experience can have its charms too. It can be annoying, but like
totally.
Joe, I'm interested in what you're talking about with science here. Could you expound on that?
So they have the therapist and the fact that he's supposed to be essentially working out these problems, but clearly can't even denote his own issues. And then when they take the youngest daughter to see the other therapist, because she's now starting to see the boogeyman, but he's unaware of it, they think it's just grief kind of coming out. Some of the way that they try to explain, oh, this is just your fear. It's just crazy to put a child in a situation where she's immediately pissing her pants. And the fact that the therapist didn't do anything to pull back on it, and then they go back to her.
I love the light gimmick though. I was pretty in for the light. First of all,
yeah,
the light was
red box.
Yeah, it was this weird shape. She was like, the light is gonna go on and off.
Yeah,
until it's all the way off. That was a good scene. What they were doing there. But it's early enough in the movie, and sort of Joe's point, there's also, and this comes up in a lot of movies, there's the issue of like, we're going to put a child into extreme duress very early in a film. It's a little bizarre, but I don't know.
See, I'm okay with messing with kids, but when you do it for the plot device of you're trying to help them, it makes zero sense, especially when you're coming from like a professional angle that her dad should know well, like what sort of practices like she's about to go into.
Presumably, the
And
dad knows this. They don't get into it, but it's this therapist they're taking them to. It must be a friend of the dad, no?
yeah, or like a colleague or something along those lines. I
Yeah.
know. I'm sure you don't want to cross the like whatever barrier in therapy. Like, don't treat your own family. I imagine is something you never want to be doing.
But that comes up later in the movie because the daughter says to him, I wish we could just talk or something like that, because he's going so far as to not even talk with them about what's happening in their lives.
Yeah, which is like I think the most realistic part with because you have a man with a beard who's just unable to express his emotions, and that just it felt real.
Yeah, that's why I'm always cleanly shaven.
Halfway
It was
Never.
yeah, it was a little
Yeah, we're like the 3 stages. I like it.
yeah, it was a little on the nose for me. Again, not shockingly so. That when I can't remember. I think it's Lester says something to the effect. It might be this actually might be in the trailer. He says like he doesn't call it the boogeyman, or maybe he does call it. He's like, it's the thing that comes for your kids when you're not paying attention to them. And then the rest of the movie is basically the dad not paying attention to the kids for potentially legitimate reasons, like his own grief and yada yada yada. It became very obvious sort of like where this was going very quickly. And then it just like went there. It didn't it did not try to wasn't challenging us.
Well, then I had questions like when it establishes the rule of how the boogeyman can or cannot approach light. And
Mhm.
it's apparently able to interact or at least take down electrical light, except for whatever power source the youngest girl was using for the lights that she wrapped around her own body
Mhm.
when the entire house is out of power.
Mhm.
I mean, I come from a kill it with fire generation. And I'm shocked that that wasn't one of the first things that you would try to do.
Well, it's a big plot point in Lights Out that where people are like using light boxes and like just blasting out with light. Like, you know what scene drove me insane was at the end, towards the end, when the kid is playing fake Xbox or whatever, and we all know what's going on at this point. It's boogeyman, light, whatever, and sitting in a dark room,
Yeah.
like
Doesn't make any
relying
sense.
on the light from the game console, and it's like turn. Surely there's a light switch in this room somewhere.
Eric, you texted during, I guess you were when you were watching the movie, and you're just like, why do people keep turning out the lights?
It's insane.
Yeah, it is pretty dumb. I mean, I guess it goes back to the like Nightmare on Elm Street thing of like you just need to stay awake. At some point you're gonna be in the dark,
And here's the thing, like
But
if to what I'm remembering, it's never not inside of a house, right? Like we never see it outside
yeah, true.
because that one woman is like holed up in her house, and all I could think was go outside. It's daytime outside.
Yeah. Yes.
And I've never seen this thing not be in a house.
Can we talk about the woman? So Lester's wife. So Lester, I mean, look, it's a tragedy. 3 of his kids. I guess we're to understand. So he had 3 kids. The oldest child dies tragically, and I believe that's when the boogeyman comes into their life, and then the boogeyman kills the next 2 kids.
I thought it was the youngest. The infant dies of SIDS, but
Oh,
I
okay.
think he thinks it was actually the boogeyman.
All right. I mean, okay.
Gray area right
It
there.
was unclear in any event, whatever. So they lose 3 children. He's now sort of grief stricken. But again, this is where it's unclear. I guess the boogeyman is haunting him still. Is the boogeyman haunting the wife? The wife has somehow in the time between when he died and then like 2 days later when this girl is coming to her house has like basically solved the boogeyman thing. She sets up this whole like booby trap with shotgun shells and tripwires. And again, the boogeyman, which can't be touched by light, also can trip a tripwire. Like what
Like
is
it
it?
can
Is
be
it a
shot.
physical
Like it's
form?
it seems like a physical being. Doesn't it get shot at some point?
Well, it gets shot a
Yeah.
bunch of times and then seems to be fine though. is
But
the
it
thing.
does take a bullet. Like it's not going through it.
Yeah.
It absolutely led to like a if it bleeds, we can kill it moment, which I was like, get the fuck out of here.
Joe's like, I'm a goddamn whole ass scientist, so like you're gonna have to do better than that.
Yeah. I mean,
I just like references to Predator.
I was ultimately fine with how they dispatch of it. It just, I mean, again, when we're like beating a bit of a dead horse, I guess, or the horse might still be alive and we're just continuing to beat it, but it just doesn't add up. Like it doesn't 100% make sense. None of it really makes sense. So I don't know. Whatever.
Now,
Is this?
I was
Go ahead, Joe. So no, go.
I was more confused by the fact that it's Sadie
Mhm.
manages to get high off of a single hit of like I don't even know how old that weed was that she found in a tin. But like what?
So okay,
And her friends, why would you invite that stupid bitch that was like making fun of her dead mom and all of that
okay.
to your
Right.
house?
So okay, you're hitting on something that was and this is something that I bring up anytime this comes up, and then Eric gets upset
already know
and
what you're
says
gonna
like
say.
I don't understand people or something. That girl was so mean to her. I don't believe it. Like I just don't
No.
believe. Look, kids today are not that mean to each other.
John,
Maybe in our day, Eric, there was
teenagers are the devil.
dude, that girl was like, I heard your mom died, you bitch. It was just like, what? Like, what? Why are you being so mean to her? It just,
There's this scene in Halloween 4 where little Daniel Harris, right, is like Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter, and in that timeline, Jamie Lee Curtis is dead, and they start singing a song about how she's an orphan to her face.
yeah, but like, again, in a movie that's that dated, I can just like, whatever. I just,
And then one
process
of them goes, Jamie's mommy's a mummy. Because it's Halloween.
Yeah.
Topical.
It's great writing.
So, but then to Joe's point, she's such a total bitch to her. But then it's like, no, we're friends.
Even to
and we're
follow
gonna
the
hang out.
logic, like I mean, what the way they kind of write her is like that this one friend is her childhood friend who now has a new group of friends.
Mhm.
And so she's the one who's being like, no, they really like you. And it's like, really? I doubt that's the conversation behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's more like I blame more the friend for being like, yeah, this is a great idea to bring these people over.
I can't fault you.
I mean, that's also true. Just to defend the weed situation for a second. Totally agree. Like, I was just like, I guess the boogeyman's getting her high or something. Like there's no way the amount of drugs that she inhaled would produce the psychoactive effects she was experiencing. What I was going to say is if this was marijuana that the mom, who was an artist, was using roughly a month ago, like if it was like freshly, it's unclear because the tin is so old and beat up looking. You sort of have to ask, is this a tin from when the mom was a teenager, or is this a tin that the like artist mom was using 4 weeks ago when she got in her car accident? And like maybe at that point, maybe that joint is consumable, is what I would say. That tin was not airtight, just to be clear. Like that shit would be very dry.
I didn't get high the first time I smoked pot.
Same.
Totally.
Fake the shit out of it. And then
it took me probably 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. No, it was like, I think at least 2 for me.
Which is really weird. What's the science behind that, Joe?
Cannabinoid receptors need to get kind of wake up.
You gotta warm them up.
Get brain used to this weird chemical that you're introducing to it.
Then it gets cool.
Yeah.
Kids.
At that point, it's like I imagine your brain's just kind of like, no, what are you doing? Stop. It's just kind of batting
Interesting.
away like gnats.
So what we're saying is, if you're gonna try drugs, you gotta try them multiple times.
Exactly, just to make
Or
sure it sticks.
Find that boogeyman weed.
Yeah.
Pulling out teeth out of your throat. That was another thing. So I've pulled a few children's teeth out of their mouths. They tend to be really fucking terrified. That was maybe the bravest I've ever seen a child where you're like,
Oh
"You
my
know what?
god,
I'm
that
like-"
scene.
Yeah.
And how nonchalant the sister was about slamming that door. Like, no part of that's a good plan whatsoever.
No, I mean that is how you that's like a thing you do to pull teeth.
That's
I mean,
a
I've
thing
not
they
done
do
it
on
to my
TV
kids,
shows,
but-
John. No one has ever done that in real life.
I've
No,
had
no.
it. Two of mine.
Yeah.
Two of your kids or yours?
So two of my own personal teeth.
So it's like some boomer bullshit.
One of my kids.
Yeah, it was like one for when I
Ava
was a
will
kid,
talk
too.
about that to her therapist when she is older.
Yeah,
She's still
I just
not
let that
happy
fall
about
out.
it.
You can handle that.
Yeah, I don't whatever that. Yeah, that's. And like, what is the boogeyman doing with that tooth? It's just new to save the thing. I guess in defense of the way the boogeyman works here, the movie does set forth this idea that I think Lester says it, the boogeyman is going to scare you to death. Like basically it lives off your fear, or it's sort of, that's like what drives it. Because otherwise you get back into this, what the hell is it doing? This is the least efficient way to kill and harvest someone, you know?
So in that case, though, so the boogeyman's like, and we see it in the one scene where it attacks Sadie, and it's like sucking her fear juice out of her body, which was weird looking.
Yeah.
But when it interacts with Lester, you hear the confrontation behind closed doors, closed walls, but then it looks like he hangs himself.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah, agreed.
I just don't know. With his wife.
No, I mean, he didn't actually hang himself. I assume the demon hung him. But to your point, why didn't it just suck the fear juices out of him?
Exactly.
Right.
Which
That's
are
a
things
really
that we
good
all
point.
know about. So
The fear juices.
which took a long time, by the way.
Sounds
The thing had to pin her down and then do the juice sucking.
You know what it's like? It's like Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat. That's like his deal.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
sucks the
but
fear
he was
juices
way
out
more
of you.
efficient. It was like a one
Yeah.
slurp
Suck
situation.
them fear juices out real quick.
This was, we got to build dramatic tension. Let's let
Mhm.
her, deal with this for a little while.
Mhm.
Mhm.
They're making a new Mortal Kombat, John. Did you see that?
Game.
Now Liu Kang is the Thunder God and not Raiden. Raiden is but a lowly farmer. It's like a reboot of the universe.
But
which I find more interesting than this movie that we're talking about.
but it's like a new game. This is a game we're talking
A
about.
new game, and in the story mode, they're rebooting the universe basically
Cool.
for like the 10th time.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
all
much
people care
canon.
about is how gory it gets and how weird it
Yeah, I
is.
read a really
Will there
good
be babalities?
I read a really good story about Mortal Kombat developers getting PTSD after the last game because of the research they had to do on anatomy. Because it's a lot different than when you made like Pixel Blood in like 1993.
Yeah. And then we'll have some red spray come out.
You're right.
Yeah.
So there, I don't know if because you don't really remember the story, right, John? As I were saying.
I mean,
I believe.
did I
don't
stutter?
Don't
No.
don't quote me on this, but someone kind of jogged my memory that at the end of the short story, spoiler alert, the therapist that he's talking to the whole time turns out to be the boogeyman. I believe.
So I got texted from a mutual friend, Allison, who said that the boogeyman in the story was actually the dad.
Oh, and then like, so the dad's like,
I feel like Eric needs to go back and read this story again.
So maybe it's written from the therapist's point of view. I don't remember. Anyway, but they kind of nod to all of that at the end, where she gets called back into the therapist's office. And I thought for sure we were like, oh, I was like, oh, are they gonna do something like kind of fun and crazy with this ending? No, she looks at an open door with a dark where it's dark inside, and just like she just looks like, "No, I'm good," and then like walks away.
Closes the door on it. I'm gonna
They
close
just-
the door
When
on my trauma.
clearly a voice that was not the therapist called her back in. So like,
Yeah.
what happened?
No, I mean, to me, that was, horror has been doing this since, what, the 40s or something. Like, that was just, let's leave the door open for a potential sequel. And
No, totally.
the fucking boogeyman gets got at the end of this movie. This movie should be the end, and then it's done and we move on. They felt like that. I don't think they were doing anything clever with the story, like the Stephen King story is what I'm saying.
It's impossible for me to view something like this in a vacuum. I just can't. It's
Well,
like everything
wait.
else.
What do you mean? Like, of course not.
I know, but like somebody who picks up this movie in 20 years will be fully doing that.
And God help them. They apparently spent $35 million making this movie.
That's crazy,
Mhm.
John.
It's apparently
Where
at 28, which is even crazier.
it was say again?
It's already made 28 million back.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, like, yeah,
That's not amazing. I mean,
no, it's okay. I mean, I don't know how widely it was distributed internationally. Like this, it didn't like blow the doors off. No, I mean, they might make another one. Although this was Walt Disney, the Disney company distributed this, and it's just like not in their wheelhouse. So I would be a little surprised if they kind of kept running at this Boogeyman universe. It's not, I don't know. But I come back to, I mean, I think Smile was made for a small fraction of what this was
I'm
made
sure,
for.
yeah.
I just don't understand, like, where did the money go?
was Smile a Blumhouse thing?
No, it was,
I know that was like a
believe-
short, right? That was
yeah, there was a short, and then it was developed for Peacock, I believe. I think it was Universal, and it was developed for
Interesting.
Peacock, and then they watched it, or maybe was it Paramount? Am I getting my streaming
I don't know.
services
I did not
confused?
care for that movie.
And then basically the creative executives watched it and were like, "Oh, this could play in the theater," and so it did.
Hmm.
And then it made a fuckload of money. And there's going to be like 3 more of those, so get ready.
Do you think the next one's gonna be Smiles?
Smiley.
What would you recommend this movie, Joe?
No, I would not.
Jonathan?
No, absolutely not.
I would also say no. I recommended Pooh, Blood, and Honey last week, but not this.
Get out of here.
We all did, John, except Elizabeth. There you go.
Oh my
Let's
God.
just take a quick break. What's up, Joe?
I would say this is a much better. I've never heard the title said out loud, like Pooh, Blood, and Honey, and it just hits a little bit different.
There's
As
a million
opposed to just
different. There's a
reading it.
million better titles you could have given that movie. We discussed it at some point.
Did you see it, Joe? Have you seen it?
No, I've
Yeah.
that and like the Grinch movie when them taking the old IPs that are now public domain and turning them
Yeah.
into stuff. My interest wanes really quickly.
Yeah.
That's all.
All right. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
And we're back. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. You can now talk to us in real time on YouTube. We've been putting up some comments we've been getting during the show. Get a live stream, get access to back episodes. all the back episodes if you're feeling real froggy. Slack. You know what Slack was talking a lot about today, John? Wildfire smoke.
Oh God.
So here's my story. I recently fully got out of like the news business for the first time in like 16 years. And I'm so burned out on it that I don't literally consume zero news. Like other than I read a little bit of political stuff in the morning. I don't watch any local news. I don't watch any like national news. I don't
So if there's
read
like a new
news.
pandemic, do you want me to text you?
I find out from Twitter
or-
pretty much is what
Okay,
happens.
Okay.
I read the Daily Beast in the morning. Like they'll tell me if there's a pandemic.
Gotcha.
But I didn't know about the fire at all. So I take my kids to school and I'm like, boy, it smells like smoky. But there's a lot of people in this neighborhood that burn stuff all the time. Like I'm in the burbs. So like it didn't faze me. I, at my lunch break, worked out outside for an hour and it was like orange and smoky. And I was like, this is really weird. Like somebody must be really getting it today. Like what's going on? So then at the end of the day, I go to get my kids from after school, whatever. And I live like in a valley. There's like a river, and the river, like you can't see the other side of it from smoke. And I'm like, oh, this is like a. So I called my mom. I'm like, is there something happening in the news with fire? She's like, yeah. So anyway, that's my story.
Yeah,
that's
I didn't clock it that much, and then they started, and then it was sort of, hey, just be aware the whatever air quality is going down, and then it was you couldn't see things 4 blocks away.
It looks apocalyptic in New York today. It's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, it's not great. My allergies. My allergies. I thought I was having really bad allergies, sort of like Monday, Tuesday, and I think it was just the fucking.
I'm
smoke
sure
the whole time. It's
I'm
not been
sure.
good.
Yeah.
My nose is just super irritated, but
You know
I'm
what
done
else?
with
Much more important than that, John, today
it.
is that it's my birthday. It is my birthday
It
period.
is. It is. Did you tell Joe? Did Joe know?
He's
did
on
know.
Slack. I'm sure he saw that at some point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm always amazed about how people keep track of all of that type of stuff in the Slack group. They're so good at it.
So nobody knew, and I don't really tell people, but I think Elizabeth posted, and then people saw it. I think that's how it ended up bleeding into
nice.
Slack. Yeah. 41 years young, John.
Mm-hmm. I know you're like 27 days ahead of me. So,
Oh, okay. Very cool.
what, any excitement? Any 41-year-old?
Here's why I was excited today about being 41. Do you remember last summer I was complaining about back pain all the time?
No, what are you talking about? You never complain.
Like Casey and I every pre-show was just Casey and I talking about our sciatic pain.
Well, Casey got a metal rod fused to his spine.
That's fine.
So,
But, sciatic pain is its own pandemic, John. Like,
yeah.
So I started doing like working out with kettlebells last year and doing lots of squats and leg exercises. And it occurred to me recently that my back pain has completely disappeared, like from
Nice.
100 to 0 in a year. And so I'm feeling pretty good about that at 41, John.
Very nice. I'm very happy for you. And
you got to maintain it at this age. That's the important thing.
You definitely got to maintain it. It ain't going to maintain itself.
It's true, man. It's true. All right. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. We got an email here from Gina. This is mostly for Joe because I didn't even know this actress's name. I had to Google her. Let's play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Can you connect Toby Hooper to Samantha Egger in 6 or less movies? It can be done. It separates the men from the final girls.
Fuck. So
Joe, I don't even know who Samantha Egger is. I just had to Google her. She's like a 60s actress. But that's like your wheelhouse.
It is, yeah. Oh, and I should know it. And there's always those great moments where as soon as I see her face, haha. So have you ever seen the movie Curtains?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it.
One of the best masks in like slasher film history. It's just kind of like this droopy, wild red hair, and it's a winter movie. So it some of the killings take place on like a frozen pond outside. All right. So
she was also she's the main actress in The Brood. She's the mom.
Yes. Yes. That's how I know. All right. So, how to get to Kevin Bacon from her, or vice versa?
What, you think
No.
it's
To
named?
get to Toby Hooper.
This says connect Toby Hooper to Samantha Eggar, so you can go either way.
All right. Well, I guess you got to go Toby Hooper and maybe Craig. Where's Craig T. Nelson land us? I feel like that heads us in the correct direction.
Poltergeist?
Wait, I'm just guessing.
Major Dad? No, not Major Dad. He was the football one. What show was that?
Coach.
Coach.
So yeah, no, this is a great puzzle. One that
Do you want to take like 10, 15 minutes and get back to us?
Yeah.
Word.
Let's circle back to it.
Ours just walked away, so okay. Let's see if I can pull up some hashtag Ask BGH on Twitter. Seeing the sausage get made here, people. All right. Do you believe in the boogeyman or anything like it? My parents' house had radiators that clanged in the middle of the night, and I was convinced it was Freddy. That's from Schnecky91.
Yeah, no, I'm a big no with almost
Yeah.
all supernatural stuff. I tend to be boring in that aspect.
I did have shit I was afraid of when I was a kid, though. Like we had this. I've talked about this before, but in my parents' basement, there's basically like a bootleg like hole cut in the wall with a weird half door thing that leads to where I think the hot water heater is, but it just 100% looked like a murder door, like a killer lives back there.
Okay.
So
See,
I did
that can be
not
terrifying.
like being in my parents' basement alone.
I was afraid of crawl spaces, but that was more because of like the bugs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the bigger thing for me was when I was 10 years old, so it would have been 1992. I asked my mom to rent me horror movies at the grocery store because that's when it was all there. She brought me back Halloween 2. I watched it upstairs in the attic by myself in a dark room, and I had nightmares all summer and couldn't sleep. Like Michael Myers was my actual boogeyman as a kid.
This is what scared us.
Do you believe in the boogeyman or anything like it? Or what scared you as a kid, I guess, is a broader question.
I mean, I was scared of like just all random shit. The crawl space, that's a good one. Whatever it was, like I don't want the bugs touching me, and it's also just like I'm not claustrophobic, but also it's like
that
you
weird
don't
thing where
need
you
to
gotta
put
like
yourself in
be
that
bent
space.
down. Yeah,
So
it's not great. Next from Chris. Anything you've ever read doesn't have to be Stephen King that has not been made into a movie yet, but should.
oof. Well, so there's a Stephen King thing that I'm still baffled has never been made, which is The Long Walk, which is one of the Bachman books. It's sort of like dystopian sci-fi-ish. And like they've made literally every other Stephen King thing, including many of the short stories. That's one that I feel like, maybe I'll do it one of these days.
I've not read a lot of things, but surely someone's going to take a stab at a House of Leaves movie someday, right?
I thought it was in development or / production.
That's not, but it's been in development forever. I feel like, that's going to happen eventually.
No,
who knows what it's going to look like? It could be unbelievably awful, but
I did see them trying to push for a new Mike Flanagan's Dark Tower, and Stephen King giving his full support. We'll see if that ever happens.
I mean,
as a full movie, you'd have to find a studio that would want to put money into that thing.
I think it was Amazon doing a series.
Yeah.
Series makes more sense. I think we said that when we reviewed it, like this needs to be a series so you can actually follow what the hell's happening.
I've never read any of those, and I've never seen any of the movies, or maybe I guess there was only the one movie.
The movie was weird. It was kind of like YA, like the way they sort of did the movie.
The one with Idris, wasn't Idris Elba?
Idris Elba, yeah. Levi wants to know from YouTube, Joe, have you seen the other Boogeyman films?
No, I have not. I've seen the Boogeyman and
Oh,
Bride of
that's probably what
Boogeyman.
I'm thinking of from
The
Disney.
Disney one,
I
yeah.
definitely now that was a thing that I saw so young I didn't know it was supposed to be like funny or whatever. It is, right? Like it's kind of funny. Like I have a lot of things like that that I saw when I was a kid, but because I didn't understand comedy or satire because I was so young, I actually just became afraid of them and like still am.
So I remember that playing on like ABC. They'd play it like the Friday of whatever Halloween weekend it was about to go down, and I love that. That was a yearly tradition for me, and I passed that on to my kids. But I haven't seen. I know in 2005 they made another movie called just Boogeyman, and I did not see that one.
I think I maybe have seen that
I
one.
think we
It's
did that
okay.
one potentially.
It's decent. Famously, I've said this in the show, but famously, I saw the original Airplane at a really young age and was terrified of it. Like one of my
Wow.
earliest memories is being terrified of the scene where the pilots turn into like blow up dolls. It's scary. I was like,
Dude.
who's flying that plane, dude? They're gonna crash.
That's weird. I watched that movie with my
But it's
grandfather
so
when I was trying to be
bizarre.
like
If you see it at
7.
it's so bizarre though. Like if you see it at a young age, how is a young mind supposed to make sense of any of that?
That's how I learned to inflate a lot of blow up dolls.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right.
I just don't know how Leslie Nielsen could ever scare anyone. That mofo.
I don't know, man.
He was so good. He used to always play the villain in like made for TV movies
I
back in the
loved
day.
him, yeah.
Or if you ever see Day of the Animal, which is one of those when animals attack, he ends up being kind of the human antagonist in the survivalist group of tourists. And to watch Leslie Nielsen fight a bear, shirtless, fight a bear on a mountaintop during a thunderstorm,
Yeah.
that as Al Pacino says in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that's cinema.
I mean, that's why I always loved him in Creepshow because he plays the bad guy and he's really good at it.
Yeah.
Like he's so smarmy. All right, we are on to Instagram. Loyola Rambler Ryan says, best short story from Night Shift, question mark?
I'd have to go through the list.
The only ones I remember are this and the one where the eyeballs are the alien eyeballs are growing in the guy's hand and they're like sort of like peering into the world from through another like dimension. And that was really good. And that's all I really remember. So I'm going to say those two.
The Mangler is in there.
Also
really
the one where the dad is slowly turning into a monster and he keeps sending his kid to the store for beer.
Yeah.
The Creep Show on series on Shudder did a version of that. That's like awful.
What was the movie that there's an anthology movie, Cat's Eye, I think, has a couple of these because Quitters Inc. and Battleground, I remember being fun. And I think those were both in the Cat's Eye film. There is Children of the Corn is in there.
Sometimes they come back.
Yeah, this is a really good collection. Like I said, I used to read this when I was 10
and Jerusalem's Lot.
Yeah, Jerusalem's Lot. That I wasn't sure if the Jerusalem's Lot predated Salem's Lot. I guess it probably did, right?
I think it did, yeah.
Because that book, the full Salem's Lot is also excellent. So, yeah, Eric, what is the Ledge? That is also, I think, in Cat's Eye, isn't it? Whatever the hell that movie is that I'm thinking.
Cat's Eye is not one that I'm super like. I've seen it, bits of pieces of it on TV, but I've never really sat and watched it. I just remember there's a cat that like ties all the story. That's like the wraparound is this cat going through the city.
Is it? Oh, you know what? It says it was converted into teleplay for the television series Nightmares and Dreamscapes. Maybe that's what I'm getting confused.
Oh, interesting.
With. I don't know. I thought it was.
Yeah. Next up from Humble Kevo, can you guys review Possession? I just watched on Shudder and it's trippy AF. I watched it when
it for a long time.
I watched it when they put it on. My thing is, I feel like it's a lot to sit through, and I'm not super looking forward to sitting through it again. Like, I also, as far as like Shudder unearthing obscure movies, I have a really high bar now because of The Devils that I watch, and literally I was like, that was pretty good. It's no Devils. It's not the same.
It's
It could happen if we end up in a dry spell and like need a movie.
yeah, it's such a it hurts to watch, especially the older you get. It's really just a marriage
It's
story for
brutal
people
when
that
they're
love
like
body
leaving the
horror.
kid alone and shit. Yeah. But I think what's really interesting about it is how it plays with the character's sense of reality and time, like the way Sam Neill will just discover it's been 6 weeks when he thinks it's been hours or something. Really, really trippy. It's cool.
I gotta watch it. I mean, whether we do it or not, it's been on my list for a long
Young
time.
Sam Neill, a very striking gentleman.
He's the man.
Amazing performances abound.
What was everybody's favorite and least favorite Stephen King adaptation? I mean, there's been so many bad things. Like, I know there
things too. I was gonna say The Shining for both, but
it's The Shining for both, really. Like, and that's sort of a funny thing because Kubrick's Shining, like, famously so different from the book, but it's one of the best horror movies ever made, if not the best. And you wouldn't know this, John, because you're not on Twitter, but there's 100% the Shining TV miniseries has seen like a mini, like you hear people will come out of the woodwork now and be like, that was really good. Those people are liars and are being tricked by their own nostalgia because they were like 8 when they saw it.
Yeah.
John,
I don't believe that there is like a serious push for people to consider that a good piece of.
Yes, there are 100% think pieces about it that exist right now.
Like everyone says these things around like, oh, the Kubrick Shining changed something. It does not change the fundamental elements of the story. Like, I don't know, like it's like an interpretation, but it is not. I mean, yeah, like plot points change, but whatever. The book's
what's
great.
interesting about
the
it
movie's
is
also great. They're both great.
It is just
Stephen King was annoyed about it. That's
what
why
he
everyone
really
talks about that.
did. And people want to be like, I'm like Stephen King. I'm annoyed by it too.
Exactly.
Like whatever. But what he really did was like hardcore streamline that story into just the basic elements of what makes it scary. But
that's what all good adaptations do.
Here's the one thing that I think that I can understand why King was upset about. That like it makes sense. Like King wrote it which I've actually read. He wrote a very nuanced story about a man's like slow turn to insanity. Whereas in Kubrick's movie, you could argue Jack is batshit crazy from frame one because of his performance. Like he looks psycho in that car when they're driving up the mountain. But the rest of the film is so brilliant. Like you just really can't,
Yeah.
You guys see the sorry.
Well, no, go ahead.
See the thread that somebody just started where I guess they're discovering that Jack Nicholson consistently like fourth wall breaks in The Shining as they were slowing down each I guess moving frame by frame. As he's moving through, he's always making eye contact even before he gets to the hotel. So
I have not seen that.
I just saw a great clip of him from the set of The Shining. I think probably from Kubrick's wife shot a documentary during that movie that's like fascinating. And it's him getting ready for like take 58 or something of the axe scene in the door. And he's like, ooh, clearly on coke. And he's like jumping up and down. And he's like doing this and he's swinging the axe. He's like murder. And it's the best, man. Actors are crazy and I love it.
Do we want to give any other Stephen King adaptations?
Like favorite. What would another favorite be? Man?
Stand by Me. Favorite for me.
Sure.
Worst, Thinner. Like that movie's
never
garbage.
seen Thinner.
I don't. It's really bad.
I've never seen Thinner. I don't so much care for Children of the Corn. I think that's like fine. It's kind of.
I like Children of the Corn 1. I'll stand by Children of the Corn 1. But yeah.
I liked it because I had a cornhouse or a cornfield by my house.
Oh yeah, that's creepy for sure.
I made it out of corn, so I love this fucking movie.
I mean, I think the modern It should be in discussion of best. those
Fair.
two movies.
But the second one was not good.
I think the second one is far superior to the first one, but I'm definitely in the minority on that.
Okay.
It's much better than the first one.
People, you know, there's obviously the contingent of people who will get upset if you don't say Shawshank Redemption, but
Oh, I mean, amazing.
yeah, it's a great movie. I just
Okay.
maybe you all had this experience when you went to college. Like there were people who they were like, well, this is my favorite movie ever made. And I'm just like, cool.
Julie on YouTube lets us know that Thinner is now on Max, John.
Nice. Yeah.
Not the cock. It's on Max.
I know, totally.
Carrie.
Really good.
Yeah.
De Palma. I mean, there's another like classic auteur director interpreting, you know, great source material.
Speaking of De Palma.
Speaking of,
he's really good. Hold on, sorry.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. I just want to. I want to say this for the record because I just watched Scarface, and like, speaking of the internet, John, there's like been this backlash against Scarface in the last 10 years. I think because bros really like it, but I'm watching Scarface, and I'm like, this movie's effing brilliant. Like, it is a brilliant piece of cinema.
Yeah.
On so many levels, and De Palma was a genius, and I just want to say that.
I have not seen it since it was tainted by frat bros in college. I mean, I've seen it, but I saw it when I was like 18 and loved it.
It is like, and I thought of it because you mentioned Carrie, and like those two films feel so interestingly similar to me because they were so close, like their style crossover.
They're probably like 2 or 3 years apart. I'm trying to think.
Something like that.
Yeah.
What's crazy is that, Scarface is a gangster picture, but it is a visually stunning movie. Truly. Yeah. Joe, you're an appreciator of cinema. Do I have your agreements on this here? I can't tell.
I love Scarface. De Palma is probably one of my favorite directors. I actually watched that not on purpose, but what was it, 2 years ago? I can tell you the date, February 28th. Because I was laid up in the hospital with a broken neck, and I was like, I'm fucking watching Scarface. I'm in the goddamn trauma unit. And I stayed awake the entire time and then fell asleep. That movie's fucking amazing.
All right. I'll put that back on my list. Rewatch list.
It captures that era like so perfectly. And you figure even without that, you don't get what Grand Theft Auto Vice City vibes, because that's reaching in the bag.
Yeah. It's just an amazing movie, and it bothers me that it gets like poo-pooed now because it's like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, brilliant. All right.
So
what else we got?
People are too busy appreciating the Shining miniseries.
Right, exactly. John, I bet that Venn diagram crosses over. I'm just saying. I don't know what this question means. Maybe you guys can suss this out for me. Would Annie Hardy from Dashcam being the Boogeyman make this better or worse?
Oh, well, Dashcam was the movie he made between Host and this movie, right? Isn't that what we decided?
Wait. Okay, I really was not paying attention at the beginning of the movie. This was directed by the guy that did The Host?
Yes, Eric. You son of a bitch. It's Host, not the
Just
Host,
not the Host.
Yeah.
Here's what it is, John. You have such a command of that part of the show that it's the only time I really get to check out. So I just let myself fade away, you know?
Yeah, fair. Yeah, he directed Host 2020, and then he had this thing called Dashcam that came out after, but we were discussing that we have not seen it.
Apparently there was
didn't we review Dashcam? Or no, that was the other
Spree.
Twitch thing. Spree.
Yeah. I there's some drama associated, I think, with that actress that I don't actually know any background other than people do not like her.
Okay. Good enough.
I love it. All right, next up on the gram. Was your childhood boogeyman a literal monster or a scary human male with a hat? Again, mine was Michael Myers, and that's why I'm here doing this show now.
Yeah.
Why is this person coming for what's it called? The Babadook. We're literally in Pride.
It's true.
Mm.
Man, it was weird seeing Joe Bob do the Babadook a couple of weeks ago. I was like, this is not the vibe I'm here for, sir. No, thank you.
That entire night, I read it. I was camping, and I came back to a lot of messages, be like, "Oh, everybody had fun. You
Yeah.
guys enjoyed yourselves."
What were you afraid of as a kid?
Didn't we answer this already?
Sure. What's scarier these days, horror movies or real life? LOL.
Well,
It's real life. It's not even a
Yeah,
contest.
definitely real life.
The horror
Here's a-
movies are a break from the real life.
Here's a good one from
Yes.
Polly. Do you still envision spooky things in the dark at night?
Occasionally.
I do if I have seen a movie which scared me. Like I was actually pretty freaked out after watching Hereditary the other night.
Yeah.
And I had a bunch of nightmares, like real bad nightmares. It wasn't great.
It'll get you.
And the last thing to do that to me was Horror in the High Desert. I was real freaked out after that movie.
When I am in an unfamiliar place and it's super dark, like,
Yeah. I still will walk up from my basement quickly. Like I still get this just feeling like something's gonna grab my feet. I'm 41 years old.
At least you're not like walking backwards up the stairs. I got
Backwards
you.
with a flashlight.
I'm looking at you. Yeah.
Levi says, "Is this your new favorite creature design?" I couldn't tell you, sir. I couldn't see it.
So there's definitely something. I think it's the CGI. I just can't fucking discern what
Yeah.
I'm looking at. I have the same issue with video games where I'm like, I'm just looking at a bunch of kind of just a blobbish thing, and then it takes me like a minute for my brain to start to put together the image that's actually there.
Yeah. It would also it was poorly lit, as I think Eric was mentioning, / maybe edited. I don't know.
Millions of Dead Brain Cells says, "Why didn't they just turn on the goddamn lights, though?" More importantly, happy birthday. Thank you. Really, there's several scenes where that's the answer.
Yeah.
What's
Well,
worse?
or just get a bunch of really tiny candles. I don't know if you guys are having this thought, but those fucking candles that she had all over the floor, they were tiny and they would have been going out constantly. She had
How?
like 1,000 of them.
Half her day was just to light them
Yeah.
and then relight them.
By the time she got to the other end of the hallway, she'd be turning around to go, yeah, get more candles.
Floor be super slippery from wax.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not great. Not good home care.
Slip and hit with those tripwires.
Next up from This is Chris. What's worse, being alone in a dark basement or attic?
I'm going basement. Worse. It's like
going
cooler, clammy. It's kind of clammy down there, There's a dampness.
You're going basement? Yeah, I think the basement too.
See, attic. It's stuffy. It's way too hot, and so you start to breathe a little bit differently. Y'all ever been hit in the face with a bat? It's the fucking worst.
There is something.
You mean like you mean like a bat that's flying, not the
Yeah,
baseball
man.
bat?
Not like a baseball bat. Yeah.
There is something unnerving about the
You ever been hit
space,
with a
though.
baseball bat? It's terrible.
Like to your point, John, about crawl spaces, there's something unnerving about the space in the attic because it is so different and unnatural from every other space you ever are in during a day.
Well, and here's what I'd say: insulation. You don't want to step on that, so then
No.
you're getting like anxious. Like, oh
no,
boy.
so like my parents' basement, my dad has slowly been collecting plywood over like 50 years, so it's just plywood laid across, like all of it.
Is it a dirt floor otherwise?
No. Otherwise, you're stepping on the insulation and falling through the roof.
In attic. Sorry, I thought
In the
you were
attic,
with the
yeah.
basement. I was like, oh, gotcha.
I think we have one more. Would this have been better if it was rated R?
No.
I'm saying yes, but that's generally true. It just, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't have fully saved it, but it might have been more interesting, I guess.
What they're gonna like, so they do like a little bit of splatter on the first kid that gets killed, which then they describe as SIDS, which none of that then makes sense. And so I guess I'm assuming that's fear juice splatter, not blood. But like, what else are they gonna show?
Oh, so you're okay. Hold on. That intro scene, you thought that was the SIDS baby,
Yes, I
yeah,
think it was.
but that
Yeah.
baby was way too old to be a SIDS baby. SIDS is like-
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I probably didn't go into that.
Well, because he says like that's what they say it was, but it wasn't.
I see. Look, you're probably right. It probably would have been equally as bad. Well, isn't the R-rated version of this Smile? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, yes. Yeah. There's not much difference. Right. The difference in Smile being like some of that more violent, scary
yeah,
stuff.
they did the sort of more violent, stalky kill.
All I
stuff.
remember from Smile this far out is the lady's upside down head. When she's like, she like comes up to the car and her head swings underneath.
Oh yeah, I just remember when the woman comes to the other woman's house and then sort of does the walk over her couch and sort of
Yes,
chases
the
her down the
therapist.
stairs. Yeah.
Like the therapist in this movie.
And then the like super duper bad scene where the cop and her are in a car drive. There's a lot of driving around scenes in Smile, if you guys remember.
Mhm.
So that movie's terrible.
That's gonna do
First
it. Oh, go ahead. Oh, Joe, we got to get our answer here on our 6 degrees of separation.
I've been trying to figure it out and I cannot, and it has me stumped. Which
Okay,
is
person who sent
amazing,
that, which
so-
I forgot because I have no memory, please give us the answer. Oh, it was Gina in the email. We need the
Gina!
answer.
I
Damn,
want to
Gina.
know.
All right. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Bloody Good Horror. Thanks to all our YouTube viewers live commenting on the show. If you want to check that out, go to patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. And do we know what we're doing next week, John?
Yeah, we're doing Brooklyn 45, which is on Shudder.
I don't know what that is.
Me neither. Casey, this is a Casey John. So
We'll see.
it's on Shudder.
Joe-
We love Shudder. We're supporting
Joe,
Shudder.
where can people find you?
You can find me at Films at First Sight, as well as No Film Left Behind, both podcasts wherever you get your podcasts.
Love it. All right. That's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye-bye. Still Casey
Bye-bye.
shit.